Athens is a great place to base yourself on a trip to Greece, so that way you don't have to pack and unpack every time you want to go somewhere new. It's also great if you don't have a lot of extra vacation days, you can just take a day trip from Athens. Here are 5 day trips from Athens that they can all be driven to, and many of them can be reached by public transportation. Make sure to stay tuned to the end because I'm going to give you a hidden gem that you can also reach by ferry. The first day trip I recommend is Delphi. Many people know about Delphi and the archaeological site that is there because of the Oracle of Delphi and its sort of history in the ancient Greek world. It is located about 2.5 hours north drive of Athens on Mount Parnassus, and many people go there from Athens on a day trip. Not only can you visit the archaeological site, but you can also visit the amazing museum. So how do you get to Delphi from Athens? Of course, you can drive. The drive is fairly easy until you hit the mountains, and if you're like me, it gets a little bit too windy, and I don't like heights. So if you don't like that, you may want to consider taking the public bus, which is what I did. It was a fairly easy bus ride. They made one stop along the way, I believe, for a little bit of a bathroom and snack break, and then we just kept going. The great thing is the public bus drops you right in the main town of Delphi, and the archaeological site is only about a 10-minute walk. A couple of tips if you're going to drive yourself, or even if you're going to take the day trip, you want to leave Athens as early as possible. So for 2 reasons. One, you're beating the crowds, and then you have the ability to come back to Athens in the same day. Because while 2.5 hours isn't that far, you then have to also drive back to Athens later that day. Also, this helps with parking at the archaeological site if you're going to drive yourself, because while there is parking and it is free, there aren't a ton of spaces. So it may be that if you don't see a spot, you have to park in town and then walk to the archaeological site. My other insider tip is outside of the museum are some water fountains, and they are actually fed from the mountain spring, and the water is super cold and delicious. Definitely recommend. I will link to all of the bus websites down in the description box below, because the hint to taking the public bus here in Greece is, unfortunately, they're all different companies, so you need to go look at each website to see what the schedule is. Keep in mind that if you're watching this video when it's come out in November of 2023, the summer schedule for 2024 for the buses probably has not come out yet. So you need to wait for about 2, maybe 1 month in advance of when you're going to be here to see what that bus schedule is going to be. But don't worry, all of these are very common routes and the buses go all the time. The next place that I recommend that you go on a day trip to is the town of Napo. It's only about a 2-hour drive from Athens. It has a beautiful old town of beautiful pastel buildings. And if you didn't know this, Napo used to be the capital of Greece before Athens became the capital. And it also has 3 fortresses, all of which are fairly accessible. There's Palamidi Fortress, which has supposedly 1,000 stairs to the top. Don't worry, you can also drive. And then there's a smaller fortress that's sort of a ruin. And then there's a fortress out in the water that you can only reach by boat. The great thing about going to Napo for the day is that you can do all of these things and have a really nice long lunch and still make it to Athens back for the evening. How do you get to Napo? As I said, you can drive. The drive is actually really easy. It's pretty much the new road the whole way, and there are some tolls, but you can pay by cash or credit card, and it's a very easy system to do. There's also plenty of parking in Napo that is free. It's down by the waterfront. And if you decide to take the public bus, which is what I did because I don't have a car here, it drops you just on the edge of town, but literally you are in town within less than 5 minutes. I would say probably 2. So it's really great to do either way. And the nice thing about all of the buses usually is you can book your ticket both ways, but you don't have to pick your time to return until later. So you may say, well, I know I want to go to Napo, but I'm not sure what time of day I want to come back. You don't need to worry about that until later. If you pick the right ticket, and I'll show you here on screen how you do that, then you don't have to worry about picking that return time in advance. So then you have a little bit more flexibility. One of the closer day trips that you can do from Athens is to go to Cape Sunion, which, if you've seen this amazing Parthenon-looking structure, but near the sea, you may be wondering, what is that? That is the Temple of Poseidon, and there used to actually be an ancient fort built around the Temple of Poseidon. And a lot of people think that it's just the temple to see, but there's not. There's all of these ruins around the temple to go see. A lot of people like to go to Cape Sunion for the sunset, which I do recommend. However, if you go and you're there till sunset, you're gonna notice it gets really, really crowded. So what I did is I happened to go with a friend. We drove somewhere else for a few, like 20 minutes back down the road towards Athens, and had a great view of the sunset while we had our dinner. So that's my recommendation if you drive. Now, you may be wondering, but Tiffany, I don't wanna drive in Athens. Don't worry, there is a bus. The bus schedule is a little bit limited to go to Cape Sunion, not so much in the summer, but they only have one bus usually running after sunset. So you just need to make sure that you check the time when you go and get your ticket and say, hey, what time is that last bus gonna leave? And that you already have your ticket booked for that. So that way you know that you're gonna be able to get on the bus. But like I said, it's only an hour. So it's a really great, even half-day trip if you wanted to, say, do something here in Athens in the morning and then go out there in the evening to watch sunset. However, you can make it a whole day. There's a really great beach right there. If you're wondering, Tiffany, none of these are islands. I thought some of these day trips are going to be islands. Don't worry, I'm gonna do a whole video on islands that you can do for a day trip from Athens, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can see that video when it comes out. The other place that I think is a great day trip from Athens, I have done this one with friends in a car, is to go to ancient Corinth. And I don't think a lot of people think about going to Corinth. They go to the Corinth Canal, but they don't go to ancient Corinth, which is a very large archaeological site and has many amazing things to see. There's also Corinth, which is the fortress up on the hill that you can also get there by bus if you schedule it right. So it's only about an hour and a half drive, depending on traffic, from Athens to ancient Corinth. You can also take the bus. It's a little bit trickier to take the bus to ancient Corinth because you have to take the bus to New Corinth and then catch another bus. The other thing about going to ancient Corinth is you can also take the train. The train will drop you in Corinth, and then you'll have to get a taxi to ancient Corinth. The beauty of driving either on the bus or on your own to ancient Corinth is you will be able to see the Corinth Canal. If you're on the bus, they're not likely to stop, but you can at least see it driving by. But if you drive on your own, stops for 10 or 15 minutes. There is a bridge that you can walk out on over the Corinth Canal, and you can see it. So you can do this either on the way there, on the way back. You can do it both times. Get a little bit different view from each direction. Now let's talk about my hidden gem location. This is Methana. And you may be thinking, I have never heard of this location in Greece before, Tiffany. What are you talking about? This is not an island, although a lot of people somehow think it is. It is actually part of the Peloponnese, and some people may be thinking that the Peloponnese is far, but if you've gone to Napo, then you already did the Peloponnese. So don't worry, it's not that far, and you can drive it. It's probably about a 2.5 hour drive from Athens. What is really unique to Methana, it is that it's a volcano. There are actually several volcanoes on this very small peninsula, actually. And that's what it's known for, because it used to have all these thermal baths that you could go. Now, unfortunately, none of the organized ones are really open anymore. It's not as bustling as it used to be, unfortunately. But there are some ones that are around the beaches that you can go and explore. There's also lots of hiking trails. You can hike up to the volcano. And on the western side, there's some great restaurants and also a very ancient Acropolis ruin. It is very much a ruin. You will see in the videos that I linked below if you are interested in Methana. So like I said, you can drive to Methana, but you can also take the ferry. The ferry goes from Piraeus to Methana a couple of times a day during the high season. It is a car ferry. If you're going to go to Methana, you probably need a car. That is the only caveat to Methana. There really isn't any public transportation unless you get a taxi. The car ferry is very easy though. It's not like the ones going to like Santorini and Mykonos. Those are so crowded. This is not crowded like that. It's crowded. It's just not as insanely chaotic. I would check with your car rental company though, because some car rental companies do not want you to take their rental car onto a ferry. So that's the one thing that you need to be sure of before you take your car onto a ferry. If you don't want to take a car onto the ferry, then I recommend that you try to contact a local taxi company in Methana or tour guide and see if they can't arrange something for you. Like I said, I have videos on each one of these places because I have been to all of these places. I will link them down in the description box below. I hope this gives you some inspiration for day trips from Athens. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.